YouTube Ozic going the Go Nows is back with the best defensive fit for every single NFL team using prospects that could be from any round of this upcoming draft. Similar video for offensive prospects and for every team. Personally, I like this one a little bit better. We have a bunch of content covering the NFL draft on the channel. We'll have more winners, losers, grades throughout the draft. We'll be live during day 1, live analysis day 2 and 3 on Twitter. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. What a beautiful time of the year. Starting with the Bears. I like this one a lot, actually. Brandon Dorlus, defensive lineman from Oregon. This is a good possibility, good option for the Chicago Bears in the early of the third round. Remember, they don't have a second round pick. If they use their first round pick on a defensive lineman, I'd say this is a lot less likely maybe, but they could go receiver in the first round. Besides the point, if they were to target a defensive player, I love Dorlus as a fit and Matt Eberflus's defense, and again, a good option early third. But what I like about Dorlus, I'm a huge fan as well. He could play inside and he can play off the edge, so it kind of fills that role for a 3 technique the Bears are looking for, and he can give you reps at defensive end, so it almost fills, in a way, like 2 spots. But I do think a really good fit in their scheme. So I love that one for Chicago. Next, for Washington, how about Chop Robinson? And they might have to make a little bit, it might have to be a little bit of movement, but I do think it's realistic. If he starts to slide a little bit, because he's not going to be for everyone, so he could. They have a bunch of day 2 picks. They can move up late 1. I mean, can't completely rule it out that he's there for them early 2. I'm just not really expecting it. But a poor man's Micah Parsons type player for Dan Quinn, who coached Micah Parsons, and they're looking for a little bit more athleticism off the edge. They've added some pieces, some guys that pretty good stopping and run. They're pretty physical, but this would be something they don't have in a big upgrade and a big addition for Dan Quinn's defense. So love that one for Washington. Next, for the Patriots, had to go with the mid, maybe early day 3 round here, because we're going to see a lot of offensive picks for the Patriots. But what I do like, if they're looking for another corner, is Brownlee from Louisville. I like his man coverage ability. We know the Patriots like to run a lot of man. They run some cover too as well. But I guess it's going to come down to what they want to do with Jonathan Jones, because he was a really high-level slot corner before this past year, and they used him outside full-time. Christian Gonzalez coming back. So, it's really going to depend on where they want to play Jones, but I definitely think they could be looking for a corner. But here's another one that can play outside and inside, equally effective from both. He's very physical. I love that about his game. So just feels like a Patriots-type player here. So that's a guy to watch for them in the later rounds. I heard just today that the Patriots don't have many guys on their board compared to other teams, so they're looking to kind of load up on the top players like early in the earlier rounds perhaps. Next, the Cardinals. I like Max Melton. I'm a big fan of him, but I like him for Jonathan Gannon's defense. Can play inside, play outside. Gannon's the guy that likes to mix up the coverages. You're not going to see 1 or 2 types of coverages. I think Melton could really fit that. A versatile corner. I think they have an opportunity to take him, whether it's late first, which I would not be against that, even though it might surprise a lot of people, or early second. It would be an A+ pick down there. So good fit. Definitely looking for another corner, as they lost some. They did bring in Sean Murphy-Bunting, but doesn't stop them from adding a solid corner here. For the Chargers, you had to go with the Michigan guy. They got Michigan staffers, not just Jim Harbaugh, and they have a lot of needs, I guess, especially on defense. So Colson was so important for Michigan. He's getting a lot of buzz lately. He's that old school type linebacker, in terms of coverage, better in zone. Again, he fits that Michigan defense, which the Chargers are really going to run there, and they badly need a linebacker, a guy that can maybe call that defense. So I thought that was a pretty good fit. Could be their pick in the 2nd or 3rd round, depending on where he goes. He's starting to get a lot of buzz. Once was like, okay, 3rd round, but since he's getting a lot of buzz, could he go 2nd? Do you take more of a premium position up there? We'll see. But you had to go with the Michigan guy for defense for the Chargers. It just makes too much sense, and it is a fit. For the Giants, I like Cole Bishop from Utah. I'm a big fan. I love this one. Okay, I love the fit to replace Xavier McKinney, but it's a little tough because it's a new staff. So it's not the same. Well, it's a new defensive staff. It's not it's not Don Martindale that lost Xavier McKinney is trying to replace him. So it's a little different of a staff, but I think they'll be looking for a guy that can play zone and man, maybe a little bit more zone than they ran last year. They were mainly a man coverage team, but they're going to still run a bit of man. Shane Bowen, but some cover 4 as well. Everybody runs a little bit of cover 3. So I think Bishop could fit that. Also, they have Pinnock playing free safety, but McKinney played technically a strong, but he had a lot of reps at free for a guy that's a strong safety, really good around the box. So here you got a guy, Cole Bishop, that is, I view as a strong safety, pretty good in coverage, really good in the box, really good blitzing. McKinney did a lot of that, but he has a lot of reps, instinctive reps at free safety as well. So if we're talking Xavier McKinney replacement, boom, Cole Bishop, but they might not be looking for that because it's a little bit different of his defensive staff. They might not be looking for that exact type player, but I had to do it. I had to do it here at Bishop, so I like that one so much. For the Titans, I'm going to go to safety as well. They added a lot to their secondary. It's mainly corners, and they do have some safeties, but will they fit Denard Wilson's defense? I thought about some edge rushers because that might be a little more important for them, but there's none that say, this fits, but there's none that say, yes, Titans fit, Wilson's defense fit. I thought Hicks actually screamed that, really. I think he'll be looking specifically for a safety that could play in the box but man cover tight ends, like a guy that is pretty physical, downhill guy, but that really, it's very like a Kyle Hamilton type. You're not going to find Kyle Hamilton at all, but the closest thing to that style of play, obviously doesn't have the length, or he's just not as good, but it's Jaden Hicks, and he's pretty flashy. He's fun to watch, high motor guy. So that felt like a Wilson guy for that defense. So one to watch there, maybe in, the Titans are a little short on picks, but yeah, he'd probably go around 3, I'd say. We'll see if there's any movement for that. But for the Falcons, this was an interesting one for this video because there's 2 in the first round. We think they're going to go defense at 8. There's 2 that we really, really like, and it's who's mocked to them the most, Dallas Turner, and I would prefer Dallas Turner for them when they're on the clock. Who's a better pick? I think slightly Turner over Mitchell, but specifically who is the better fit? And I'm starting to mock Mitchell. I'm starting to think that because how good of a fit it is. Turner's a fit. Like, he works in Raheem Morris's defense. He fits more than the other top pass rushers. 3-4 guy with speed off the edge. What he looks for. But there's nothing else besides that, like scheme-wise, that says, like, yes, that is like an obvious. It is an obvious fit, but it's not like for sure he's got Falcons written all over him. I think Mitchell has Falcons written all over him because Raheem Morris is a big zone defense type of guy, specifically cover 4, but he'll run cover 3. I mean, again, every cover 3 seems to be the go-to, like the easiest to run for teams. So, but a lot of cover 4 for the Rams in the past, but now the Falcons under Raheem Morris and that staff. Mitchell is a pure zone corner. I mean, he can play man, but he's not going to press a ton. He's just so much better in zone when he's being able to sit and read the quarterback. That's just zone coverage right there with his playmaking ability. And I think specifically could be really good in cover 4 and cover 3. And A.J. Terrell will be a good pairing with him, and his contract's kind of getting towards the end a little bit, so be another reason. So, between, again, I would probably like Dallas. This isn't like the best possible pick video. It's best fit. I would like Dallas Turner a little bit more. I think Mitchell probably helps you more right away. That's debatable, I suppose. But which one kind of screams Falcons a little bit more when it comes to defense? I'm gonna say Mitchell. I'm gonna say Mitchell on that one. So that's an interesting. I have a team coming up that's in the same boat exactly. Actually, the Jets. I'm gonna go with Tyler Nubin. I like this one a lot as a good fit. I think I say that for every single one. But yeah, the Jets possibly, needing offense, but then in day 2, possibly taking a defensive player. They lost Jordan Whitehead, who was a free safety that could play strong. And they run a lot of zone coverage. They do run some man, though, and that's kind of the knock on Nubin. Not a lot of reps in man, but they run a lot. Another team that runs a lot of cover 4, I think Tyler Nubin is a perfect fit as a cover 4 free safety, and that's what they're kind of looking for there, possibly. Maybe they're not going to value it super high because they'll let Whitehead walk for less than I thought he was going to get, so we'll see. And they have some in-house options that can play that spot, but an instinctive zone safety, it made a lot of sense there. And they don't really need a whole lot in terms of defense. I mean, I thought about putting a nose tackle here, but I thought this one made a lot more sense here. For the Vikings, I'm going to go Byron Murphy, and it's a little tough because what they're going to do, like, do they have an opportunity to get Byron Murphy? If they stay put at 11, then yes, they definitely, if they stay put in 11, like all those quarterbacks are off the board, I'd actually watch out like this for this being the pick, unless Dallas Turner's there, maybe that. I don't think, we'll see. But it just feels like there's quite a few guys that feel like Brian Flores guys, but this is probably number one. They're in need of a defensive tackle. At one point, I was thinking Newton from Illinois, but he could end up being more of the end in that role in that defense, which they're not locked in with Bullard, but they do kind of like him there. So looking for that D tackle, and you get one here with a lot of power. So it just feels like a Brian Flores guy, what they're looking for. They tried to sign Christian Wilkins. Obviously, the Raiders paid a lot for that, but and it does feel like the Vikings have interest in Murphy, but will they be able to land him is the question. So the Broncos are in the same boat for me as the Falcons. Like, this is either Quinion Mitchell or it's Dallas Turner. And George Payton, their GM, Sean Payton, the head coach, like they in their careers, they've been traits guys. And both those guys are traits guys. When it comes to edge, you look for length and just overall athletic traits. So that would make sense. They're kind of linked a lot too. I just my opinion, I think Turner would make more sense for them. And they'd be more likely to take him if they're going to go edge. But Mitchell makes a ton of sense. Again, he has the athletic traits. He has the build as well, the length. He has that big playmaking ability. He some comparisons to Marshawn Lattimore, who Sean Payton obviously thinks highly of him. Taking him in New Orleans when he was in New Orleans. So, and then a factor in that Vance Joseph likes to run as much cover three, almost as much cover three as anybody, and I think Mitchell could really thrive in that type of coverage. So pairing him with Surtain, you got Surtain who's lockdown, let's throw away from the lockdown guy, to Mitchell on the other side who's more of the playmaking guy. Kind of meshes pretty well. So thought that made sense as a fit. If he's available, if the Falcons pass on him, I'd probably be mocking Mitchell to the Broncos, but we will see. Next for the Raiders, I'm going to go with the corner as well. I like Terrion Arnold. He's my number one corner. Those pure zone teams, maybe like a little bit more a fan of Mitchell. That makes sense. Arnold is kind of the do-it-all type guy. I like him in man a lot, like him in zone a lot. He can press. He can play outside, inside. So Patrick Graham's defense, it feels like he wants to keep a lot of man coverage in his defense. You have to be able to play man, but he wants to mix it up. He's a very smart defensive coordinator. So I thought Arnold, that type of corner that he is, he can mix it up. I thought that was a really good fit there in Vegas. For the Saints, I actually love this one. Marshawn, one of my favorite ones in the video, actually. Marshawn Nealon has Saints written all over him, and do they end up with them, though? They may not end up with them, and they still got Saints written all over him because they might need to draft offense. You think they got to go tackle in the first round, and then maybe they're looking at receiver or continue to build up the offensive line next. But if he's there in the second round, I think they would really, and they do have quite a few pass rushers already. They drafted Foskey, who I said had Saints written all over him. But they drafted him last year, didn't play much. I think maybe could take off in the near future. But Nealon is that big body, physical, super long, pretty athletic for his size too, pretty quick. Make a Cam Jordan type player that Mickey Loomis would just be in love with, I think. So I'd say he's I bet you they have a first round grade on him. I'm just gonna say it. I think I heard some teams do. I bet you the Saints do, but that doesn't mean they're taking him way up at their pick at 14. They probably not that high on him, and they badly need a tackle. But this is a Saints guy all day right here. So Darius Robinson too, another one. I thought Nealon a little bit more because he's a little bit quicker. But yeah, and then Nate Wiggins for the Colts. Thought about a few corners here, even versatile one and Cooper DeJean, but I like Wiggins. I like his upside in the cover 3 defense, which Gus Bradley runs more cover 3 than anybody, but he's been mixing in more man coverage. When they got Gilmore a couple years ago, that was so they could mix in a little bit more man. And Wiggins has a lot of reps in man, just not enough press reps. So thought that was a pretty good fit. I would, if they were to pick him, I would hope they'd trade back a little bit and just get more picks. They had a lot of picks last year. I thought Ballard did some damage with those last year, so would hope for the same thing in a scenario like this. Seahawks going to go Junior Colson. We used him before as well. It's just a Mike McDonald type linebacker. He actually has the Michigan background as well, but Mike McDonald linebacker is very valuable, very important in that defense. We saw it Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen last year. I thought maybe they would get Patrick Queen. They did add Jerome Baker, injury concern, maybe not as good as he was a few years ago, and Dotson, who, borderline starter or not, but even though he had a pretty good year last year, I think it'd be pretty important to get a solid linebacker. Colson's kind of got that old school vibe to him, stops the run, very smart. It's just the type of linebacker that will fit McDonald's defense there. So thought that was a pretty good fit. Jags going to go Terrion Arnold from Alabama. I think this is probably like the latest he goes in the first round, but yeah, they add Ryan Nielsen, defense coordinator from the Falcons, and he's another guy that's going to mix it up. Needs to run some man coverage in there, though, and Arnold is more of the mix-it-up type corner, physical, just the guy they could use, but he could be off the board by the time they pick, but it's definitely realistic there for the Jags. For the Bengals, I'm going to go T'Vondre Sweat. They're a pretty complete team for the most part, not like a long list of needs, but they do have some needs, but they lost DJ Reader. They did add Sheldon Rankins, but they're two different type of defensive linemen. Rankins is more of a D tackle and Reader's more of a nose tackle. So they and a lot of people talk about Byron Murphy for them. I think it's another Rankins really. I mean, they can make both of them work, I suppose. But the other Texas defensive lineman, T'Vondre Sweat, has a lot of upside if he stays out of trouble. But it could be a really good nose tackle at the next level. So if you need to replace DJ Reader, here's your draft. Now's your time. Thought about Lovett from Florida State as well, if you're thinking a little bit later, or if you're worried about the Sweat off the field stuff that happened a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, but I do really like that one. Rams, I'm going to go Michael Hall Jr., trying to get pass rush from the interior after losing Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald was just so good off the snap with his pass rush moves and just getting in the backfield, collapsing the pocket. And that's what Michael Hall Jr. is very good at. He's a little undersized, but so is Aaron Donald. But and then Hall is not going to be anywhere near as good as Aaron Donald. He's definitely not against the run, but he is damn impressive in the passing game. With his pass rush moves and just beating his man one-on-one and getting in the backfield. So that's how you get some more of that QB pressure from the defensive line. So like that one for the Rams. Next, we got the Steelers. I like Mikey Sainristil from Michigan. They could be in the market for a slot corner, and you have a zone, which they're kind of been switching a little bit more to recent years, but a zone playmaking slot corner to add with Joey Porter Jr. and a new corner from that Deontay Johnson trade, Dante Jackson. So I thought he kind of meshed well with that defense and kind of what they're looking for. So could be a second-round pick for them to do that to move up a little bit. We would see. Dolphins. I had Brandon Dorlus for the Bears. I have him for the Dolphins, and I love my Brandon Dorlus fits in this. The only two that are in this video. I'm probably higher on Dorlus than anyone. I would take him in the second round, but he very well could be there in the third. This feels like an Anthony Weaver type defensive lineman. Kind of help replace Christian Wilkins. I mean, he's not Christian Wilkins. He's more of like a Justin Matabuke, who Anthony Weaver coached in Baltimore. So, and he's not going to be Matabuke right away. I think he could add a little bit more strength, but that's a style player he is. Like, I see it. And he could play inside, and he can, he's not going to play off the edge when they have, and if they run out of guys again, he could. But he's going to play D tackle. He's going to play 3 technique. And Wilkins actually moved up and down the line a bit as well. So, I think a pretty good replacement in a different way and fits their new DC's defense. So really, really like that one. And we've mocked it before, they could take Newton in the first round. I think it's a pretty good fit, so that would probably cancel this one, the chances of this one. But I just really like this fit and what they're going to be looking for on that defensive front. Eagles, I'm going to go Kool-Aid McKinstry. The more I thought about this, I thought about some other corners. I thought about some pass rushers. Trying to think what Vic Fangio runs. He runs cover 3, man coverage. To me, McKinstry could fit anything. Maybe there's some other corners that slightly fit specifically Fangio's schemes, coverages a little bit more. But just thinking what the Eagles have always been about, like Howie Roseman runs the show over there. There's no doubt about it. He runs it. He drafts very well. He really likes guys with a lot of upside, guys that already play very well, but also guys that are supposed to be playing very well, former top recruits that played at big programs. It's just not a coincidence that he's drafting all these guys. And then here you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's the top cornerback recruit coming out. He was fantastic, consistent every single year for Alabama. He could be physical, he could press. He can play any coverage. He's smart. So it just feels overall, it feels like a Fangio guy as well, but it just feels like an Eagles type defensive guy here. So we'll see if it happens. You don't really see it mocked that much. I might start doing it, but there's only like a week left, so it sounded funny. It's an interesting one. For the Texans, they definitely need an interior defensive lineman. I like Mason Smith for them. If they can get him in the third, I wouldn't be against with that later pick in the second. Would not be against that. Mason Smith has a ton of upsides, and a former top recruit, freakish size, freakish length, and when he's on the field, he plays pretty damn well. Just has to stay healthy. But I would love for D'Amico Ryans to get his hands on Mason Smith, and I think he'd be special. He's what he's supposed to be. A couple years ago, I expected this guy to be a top 5, top 10 at worst pick. So that didn't really happen because he hasn't been fully been able to figure out how to use his traits, but he's been on and off the field a bit too because of injuries. So that's kind of what's pushing him down. So I would love for someone like D'Amico Ryans to get his hands on a guy like that. For the Cowboys, there's 2 that I like for the Cowboys for Mike Zimmer's defense. Cedric Gray obviously is one of them. Cole Bishop's another one. I like his work as a strong safety around the box. Very instinctive. Cowboys are going to run a lot more zone than they were in the past. They'll probably still keep a lot of man just because they have a lot of guys built for that they drafted over the years. But Zimmer does like to run a lot of zone. And Bishop, some moments that look like kind of Harrison Smith when he's up in the box. Obviously, he doesn't have Harrison Smith. He's not as good, and he's not as good as him in the back end. But so I really liked Bishop as a Zimmer guy. But they do have 2 pretty solid safeties. Just can they use one like that? That's the question. So I almost put Bishop here. But they definitely could use another linebacker. Zimmer brings in a guy that he knows fits, and Eric Kendricks, who plays inside. Now they're looking for that outside guy, maybe a guy like that was like Anthony Barr for Mike Zimmer. Cedric Gray, I think, is that guy. He's really, to me, North Carolina only played with 2 linebackers back there, but his play style just says 4-3 outside linebacker all day. And Zimmer likes guys that can cover at the linebacker position, and boy, could Cedric Gray cover. And he also could rush the passer out there, so it's definitely could be a need. I did love the Overshown pick. Hopefully, he could stay out there. Hopefully, it can be something. They do have Damone Clark. I just think you get better and more of a fit here with this one. But there was 2 that really stood out for a Mike Zimmer defense. That was Bishop and Gray. So you kind of get 2 there if you're a Cowboys fan. Packers, it's kind of cheated a little bit here, I guess, and went with Boston College guy. They bring in Jeff Hafley from who was their head coach. He's now their defensive coordinator in Green Bay. I do like Max Melton from the first, but yeah, they're going to run a lot more man coverage. Elijah Jones played very, very well in man coverage. If you need him to play inside, he probably can do that as well, but very sticky in coverage. Not going to be super flashy, so that's why you probably can get him in the 3rd, maybe the 4th round possibly. But yeah, we know he fits what they're trying to do on defense. So I thought that one made some sense there. On the Bucks, I've mocked this before too. Cooper DeJean, who I actually think, based on his versatility, I think he could end up being like an Antoine Winfield Jr. type player, where he can play safety and nickel. But even though he played at a high level at outside corner throughout his career, but yeah, I think they would take him and they would kind of use him all over. Winfield is starting free safety, so DeJean would play nickel and outside corner. But Winfield for a free safety does line up in the slot a bit, so you can use. If you want to put somebody else back there. They did bring Whitehead back, though, who can play strong and free. So I think more so they would use DeJean and nickel and outside corner. But a zone coverage guy, I think specifically cover 3 based on what I've seen, what I've watched. And Todd Bowles runs a ton of that, obviously a ton of cover 3. So it's a really good scheme fit as well. And then for the Bills, thought about a few here, a few corners. A few defensive linemen. Marshawn Nealon's kind of in the same boat as Darius Robinson. Corner I like for them, if they were going to look at day 2, I'd say TJ Tampa from Iowa State. I really thought about putting him on here, so I get a couple for the Bills. But Darius Robinson makes sense. They like physical, long defensive ends. That's what the Buffalo Bills like. They like the physical. They like the dogs out there. They need to do a better job stopping the run. He helps you out there, but he helps you inside as well. They have a pair of good interior players. Obviously, with Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones. Jones is, not maybe it's early last year. He's looking like an every down interior defensive lineman. They got hurt, so maybe he's not an every single down interior defensive lineman. So Robinson actually can play inside with Ed Oliver on passing downs, and then you can use any of your pass rushers on the outside that you have, or you can use Robinson out there too. So, they can get pretty creative there. With him, it just feels like a Buffalo Bills type guy here. I would not be surprised if they took him in the 1st round. For the Lions, I'm going to go Chop Robinson. You don't see that mocked much. He's pretty rangy. You can go kind of like middle or early middle 1st or back here. I think this is probably the latest he goes, but it just feels like a guy that they would be high on because how explosive he is, and they're really good at developing players, bringing in the players with something special to their game and developing the players. So Chop Robinson feels like he fits that, and just having that explosive, like speedy guy on the opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, I think would be really big. And I like Robinson. It's a little bit of a boomer bust guy, risky pick, but he's one of my favorite defenders in the class. And Brad Holmes just continues to take guys that I also am a fan of. So that's why I thought about putting Max Melton here as well. But I like that Chop Robinson one there. Marshawn Kneeland again here for the Ravens. It's a little tricky because will they have the opportunity to get him like late first? It sounds like he could go there, but they may be more likely to go offensive lineman or receiver. They need a defensive lineman. And then late second, I think he'd be gone by that point. So it's a little tricky, but they also need pass rush pretty damn bad. And this is a really, really good Jadeveon Clowney replacement. This is like the perfect, if you're trying to replace that specific type of player, pass rusher, physical and pretty quick, pretty explosive. This would be your guy here. So heard he can surprise and go late first. I'd watch for multiple teams, but we talked about it in a recent video, but the Ravens would be one there. The Niners, I'm also going to go with Darius Robinson. Just seems like a guy to kind of replace Arik Armstead, who could play defensive end or 3-technique D tackle at the same time. So it just kind of makes them better. They like the physical, lengthy, explosive guys too. Really, just with him, he's lacking some like closing speed. So just feels like a guy they would use well, like use him in multiple ways, and kind of get the most out of him there. Next, there's Max Melton. I like him for a lot of teams, but I like him for the Chiefs as well. Good L'Jarius Sneed replacement. They like guys that can press, can play man, but also can play cover too. Guys that can move. They like the athletic guys, obviously, with Sneed, how athletic he was on the field, how he tested. Same with McDuffie. So they, in the length that these guys have, I know McDuffie's not super lengthy, but that Melton has to try to replace Sneed here. So feels like a really good fit, a Chiefs type of guy here. And then a couple more teams that don't have first round picks. For the Panthers, possibly a round 3, but I would not be surprised if Chris Abrams-Drain went in the second round. Lengthy corner that I think is equally effective in zone and man, really good at guarding the boundary, like he's a boundary corner to me. And the Panthers under Evero like to run a lot of cover 4. I think that's, mix it up between cover 4 and man. He doesn't run too much man, but I think this is that type of corner that would fit those two. Really fit that cover 4. He's actually a top recruit as a receiver, and you kind of can see it in his game. I like that, and he's really improved at the corner position. So Missouri's got a pretty good corner duo here. They could go at Rakestraw as well, but I thought that was a really good fit for that defensive scheme. And then one more of the Browns. I had Mason Smith for the Texans as well, but I would like them for the Browns. Like him for the Browns. They need an interior defensive lineman. Just feels like a Jim Schwartz guy. Get a guy on the interior that has the traits that he would like to work with. Try to find like a Jeffrey Simmons type guy when he was in Tennessee. I mean, you're not going to find Jeffrey Simmons, but I mean, if Mason Smith was a legit recruit with a ton of upside and he just wasn't always on the field, so that's kind of what stopped it. Like, he still has a ton of upside. So if you're looking for like a freaky dude that I think Jim Schwartz would be, I mean, here's your guy. I think you can work with him as well. Pair him next to Delvin Tomlinson. Makes some sense there. So there you have it. There's some more fits I like. Some fits I like more than others. Some that stand out a little bit more. Some teams have a list of them. It's just how it goes. Some teams have the same guy they'll be fighting for. Some teams might not be able to get their hands on some of these guys. So always love doing the fit videos, and that once picks happen, like you go, oh my God, yes, that's a good fit. I love when that happens. So we're breaking down picks live day 1 here on YouTube and day 2, 3 on Twitter. So join us for all that. GLD Shop Liquid IV, those are our sponsors. Code GOAT for a percentage off. Head over to our channel, check out all that content, and there's a lot more to come. Turn notifications on. We will not be disappointed. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.